Woodard and Curran did a long time ago, because we've been doing these audits for a long time, is created a database so that when we, as auditors, come back, we can enter our findings into one place. It allows us to share that information with the rest of the team. It also allows us to create a fairly standardized format for the report that gets generated. So I'm going to hand out some information to you, and we're going to work off of tab 20 in your books. There's a one-page, two-sided sheet that we're going to look at, and then I've also got some handouts for you to go with that. So I'm going to pass out a couple of these as we go. Send some back that way. Send some around this way. So the first handout that you've got going around this is not in your book. There is one page in tab 20 that you're going to want to look at. What's the whole point of this database? It's really just to keep organized records and to be able to duplicate findings and save time. That's the key thing that I want to talk about for a minute. You all know that a lot of the issues we find are going to be similar from school to school. We don't want to keep reinventing the wheel every time we go as an audit team and identify an issue and figure out how to write it up. So in addition to keeping all the records in an organized place and making them accessible through the internet to everybody, if we visit school A and the next month visit school B, there will be sometimes a considerable overlap. So having written it up once for school A, you can copy it over to school B, make the appropriate detailed changes, but the basic format is going to be the same, and the basic level of information, the regulatory citations, will already be in place, so it'll save some time. Also, the fact that it's accessible through the internet, and what I'm going to ask you to do now, if you would please, is take that website and enter it into your computer, because we're actually going to go and play with this for a while. So is everybody at the login page? Is everybody able to log in? Your passwords are all the same. It's just the word auditor. A-U-D-I-T-O-R. Not there yet. Okay.
I couldn't get mine to log on earlier.
Oh, that's trash.
You can't get to the wireless.
I had no problem with it upstairs.
Huh. That's a technical question. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to, but I had problems in the hallway. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to look on with somebody, this is not that hard. You could also share with somebody else. If you are having any trouble, you're welcome to share with your neighbor and look on with them. Those extras? I'll take them back. Sure. All right. So I don't want to leave anybody behind. Is everybody at this point where they've been able to log in? And yours is Lahaki, but I think it's with an E. I'm not sure. You can try it with it. I hope I fixed it. I think we fixed it for you, but I'm not sure. Try it without the E, the second E. I hope I fixed it for you. Doesn't matter. Just,
It did that to me the first time too, and I'm sure it typed it right. Then I put it in the second time and it logged me in.
I don't know. Anyway, sorry for the technical delay. Didn't like it. You want to try another one? I'm going to just pick somebody else who isn't here.
All right.
You in?
You misspelled it.
I misspelled it? Oh, I'm sorry.
you did.
All right, I probably did. Okay, so has everybody gotten to this screen? Not yet? Okay.
Is everybody on the login screen?
When we go through the audit, we come back, we enter all this information, the different ones on the team, and it goes somewhere, and then y'all combine it.
Yes. That's a great question. Let me answer it as soon as everybody quiets down a minute. I'll hand out one more thing to everybody. There you go, Vanessa. That's one more handout for everybody.
Oh, you know what? Your thing's misspelled. Or is it? No, there's no and.
There's no
It's just
and.
Woodard
It's just
Curran.
Woodard Curran. There's no ampersand.
Okay.
It's just one straight word. There we go. This is a bunch for the back row here. The back benchers. All right. So for those of you who are, Can we-
He was trying to help that.
Oh, okay. I was trying to get back to that. That's great. All right. Where's my pointer? Go back again? Here. Where's my, here we go. I had all those handouts. Where'd they go? There they are. Okay. Here, the address is right on the top of this page right there.
Oh, okay. Here.
Okay. So, if I could focus you on the screen for a minute. I know you're all in different places, and some of you are jumping way ahead, which is great. I apologize, because it's going to be a little slow at first. What I just want you to notice are the different parts of the screen, because we're going to talk about the different parts of it over time together. First is just, up at the top, you've got the banner for the Board of Regents. Why am I pointing that out? Just because the way this happens to be set up, if you accidentally click on that, it's a live banner. It jumps you over to the website for the Board of Regents. You do that, terrific. Just back page and go back to the database. What I do want you to notice, though, is the first pull-down menu up here at the top, because this is important. This is going to tell you which audit you're working with. And if you would go to the pull-down arrow for just a minute and pull that down, if you haven't done that yet, you will see a long list of audit files. And I artificially took the liberty of working with Abraham Baldwin without anybody's permission and created a whole bunch of artificial files just for the purposes of this training. And so each of you has been assigned a file to use where you're going to put your made-up data. And you'll see they're all Abraham Baldwin, but there are different dates. There's a different date for each person. Each of those represents a different audit, hypothetically, just a different made-up audit. So if you would go through and find your particular audit, the date that corresponds to your name on the sheet that I handed out to everybody. Okay, and you want to identify your date and then have it show up in the window. Okay? So if you want to go to your date, Alex, yours is July 9th. All right. Has everybody been able to do that? Excellent. Thumbs up if you've been able to do it. And then what's important, is everybody set with that? You want to click on the little button that says Go. Because just because you've highlighted that, the program is not going to do anything for you in this particular case until you click Go. Most of the pull-down menus will automatically jump you to what you've selected, but in this one case, you've always got to click Go first. Okay, so you want to make sure that that's the right one, and that's nice.
You gotta get it. You gotta get it.
This is not. I did great, go 3 times.
All right. If you're in the right place, you're going to know you're in the right place, because as you look down the rest of the screen now, you're going to have a banner, a blue banner running across the page, and it's going to say, search Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College, and then if you're in the right place, the date will correspond to the date for your audit. All right? Again, in real life, this would be Georgia Tech and West Georgia and Georgia Perimeter and Abraham Baldwin and all the other schools. But for purposes of this training, this is going to help you distinguish that you're in the right audit as opposed to any of the other 35 audits that we'd be working with in real life. All right? Is everybody in the right place?
No.
Now.
I've got this beautiful screen that says welcome to Woodard and current.com's got this nice looking blonde young lady on the front.
Hey, you put an and between Woodard and
Yeah.
Current.
Yeah, it's
You gotta
just,
drop the and.
you got to drop the and. There's no ampersand. There's no and. Okay? It's nice to know we've got nice, pretty blonde ladies working at our company, but
She was better to look at than you, Dad.
I'm not going to argue with you there, Matt. All right. So again, you want to make sure this is how you're going to tell you're in the right place at all times, because we are going to jump around a bit. And as we jump around, This is going to be your indicator that you're in the right place, because you've got to imagine that this database is like a huge filing cabinet with lots of drawers. You want to make sure you're pulling out information and putting information into the correct drawer. You work with a different drawer, you're going to lose your data, because it won't be lost, but it'll be misplaced to you. It's going to be in the wrong place, and that's going to be frustrating. So, all right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about, first just a quick overview of what you're seeing here, and then we're going to play with it a bit. Up at the top, where the pointer is right now, you'll see there are 6 different little blocks. One is always going to be blue, and the others are going to be in green. The blue one is going to tell you which function you're in at any time. So whatever is blue is going to tell you which function you're working with. The one to the left, the far left, findings, is where you're going to ultimately be working with each of your findings, the violations, the management practices that the team collected and that you're entering in. So that's the first one. You're typically going to start there first. Audit management is where we're going to decide and control just how the audit is set up, what the dates are, who's working on the audit. It's making sure that the system has the right information in there. Okay? It's also going to have some additional information when we go to take a look at that report that I handed out to you. There are several other sections that I didn't highlight in the one page that you got, but there's going to be a section called Environmental Management Overview. In addition to all the findings, if there are system issues, not Board of Regents system, but within the school system issues, how EHS communicates with facilities, how everybody interacts with the folks in the laboratories, whether or not there's an issue about enough resources. These are where those kinds of findings go. It's a special separate category. This is where that kind of information would go. There's also an introduction that's, again, much like that executive summary. It sort of describes to the school who was on the audit, what the audit team looked at, how long we were at the school. So it gives a little introduction to senior administration as to what went on. And then standard of care is simply acknowledging that this was an audit, it was done at a particular time, it's a slice of life, it's not an ongoing report that's going to be continuing, but it was a particular snapshot at a given time. So that's the audit management. Replicate is the other function that you're going to use a lot. Because what we talked about a couple minutes ago of wanting not to recreate the wheel all the time, this is where the database is going to keep storing all the different findings. As you go and discover that you have an issue, most of the time you're going to be able to borrow from another report and replicate the finding that's already in there. It won't be true every time. There will be some new findings perhaps each time, but most of the time the findings are going to be more and more common, especially as we go through and we do more and more audits.
When I replicated one of those findings, I kind of went a step ahead, and I went back and looked at the findings to look at the comments.
Mm-hmm.
It defaulted back to UWG. It says UWG should ensure
Yes,
that.
okay. And I'll tell you about that. That's okay. When you go to replicate, this is going to essentially take you from the one drawer where you're working with the findings for your particular report for the moment and bring you into the entire library and say, okay, you want to borrow a book or you want to borrow a document that you're going to copy? These are all the choices you've got. You can search by regulatory program, and you can pull down and narrow your choices from all of the different programs to a specific program. Let's say you're working with hazardous waste and you want to narrow it down to just the findings that deal with hazardous waste. So that will narrow it down for you a lot. And then if you still further want to narrow it down, right now where Alex is up on the screen, it's all the hazardous waste findings from across all the audits. You can further narrow it down by the individual topic within the category of hazardous waste. So you can search through, these are all the different findings that have already been put into the system. Now, some of them are going to be repetitive, but most of them will be different findings. And then if, in the example that I handed out in the little mock-up of the report, you want to deal with containers in the satellite area that aren't closed, look to see if you can find that. If it's there, take a look through, see if it matches what you roughly are looking for. If it does, then it's a good starting point. If you don't find anything, we'll talk in a little bit about what to do when you don't find something. But on the assumption that much of the time you're going to find it, you want to look through and see. And it's done in alphabetical order, starting with the numbers first and then with each letter of the alphabet. So you can scroll through and see what you may be looking for. And you don't necessarily have to find that one, but I'm just using that as an example. You can choose any one of them and highlight it. And then I want to walk you through what to do to replicate it. So if you've chosen one, let's try a different one. I'm not sure what happened there. No, maybe don't. There we go. Okay. Has everybody highlighted one? What the key thing you want to know is that it's now going to pull that one finding up. And it's first going to tell you which regulatory program you're in, and then it's going to give you the title of the finding that you're working with. This is the finding that I may want to copy over into my report. So in this case, I'm looking at container of hazardous waste in a 90-day storage area not in good condition. And then it's going to tell me what the finding was. It's going to tell me what the requirement is that I'm evaluating against, and it's going to give me the proposed corrective action. So this is what's in the library. If you like it, if it's close enough to what you're looking for, you then go down to the bottom right part of the screen and you click on the little button that says replicate. And you'll see there are numbers at the bottom of the screen. You can scroll through different ones if you want to see if that's not the one you're looking for. You can scroll through for other ones. You can go back up to the pull-down menu and keep looking to see if you find one that is going to be close to what you're thinking about, that roughly corresponds to what you want to duplicate. And again, it's a way of jump-starting what you want to put into your own report. Instead of having to go through and look at the regulatory citations and write things up, it's a way of getting a jump start on everything. Everybody looks confused. Alex looks confused.
You know, it'd be nice to have a site like this where you can just reference most of this stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
So when you have, let me just make sure everybody's gotten to this point. Has everybody picked a finding that they want to replicate and they hit the replicate button?
Yeah.
All right, now essentially, not yet.
They give me a different site. They give me Southern Polytechnic.
Well, that's okay. I mean, the words may say Southern Polytechnic. That's okay.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. And what you're really doing is you're borrowing this from, let's pretend it's the Southern Polytechnic audit report. Okay? And so you're going to take that and you're going to make a copy of that. Okay? So you're borrowing this from their report, if you will.
Okay.
Yes? Yes. What you want to get at that point, if you've done it right, you're going to get a little question that asks you, are you sure you want to copy this? You want to submit this to be copied. It's checking with you to make sure it's really what you want. Okay, so if you want to copy it, then you click replicate or you click OK. I forget what the OK. The one that says yes.
I'm just curious. I know I'm on ABAC, but then when you I pick the hazmat something, it says Georgia Tech should do so and so.
Right. So let's get to that in a minute. All you're doing at the moment is you are, in a sense, you're photocopying a page from another book that you want to move into your book. You're photocopying a page from another report that you want to put into your report. Okay? It's not an exact match yet, but we're going to get there. So if you've made that choice and you've hit that replicate button and then you've confirmed that you really want this, you've now basically done what in a Word document would be the equivalent of hitting Control-C. You've copied the document just as it is, and now in just a second we're going to go and we're going to hit Control-V, the equivalent of Control-V. You're going to place it into the document that you're actually working with, your active live report that you're working with. And to do that, you're going to go back to findings. So you want to move from replicate when you're all done to findings. You want to make sure that that's the blue button, that's the active function that you're working with. Again, all you're doing really is in a slow way. You're picking it up from one document, you're placing it temporarily on hold, and then you're moving it over to the document that you're actually working with. And when you've done that, it will dump it into the document, into the file that you're working with. And at that point, you're going to edit it to make it correspond to what you need. So if it's borrowed from Georgia Tech or it's borrowed from Southern Polytechnic, you're going to go in and you change the names of the campuses. You may have to change a little bit of the detail. It's not going to be an exact match, and I don't want you to think that it's always going to correspond exactly. You definitely want to read it carefully and understand that you will have to do a little bit of editing, but it's going to give you a big head start. It may get you 85% of the way there, it will rarely get you 100% of the way there. So it's not perfect, but it's a very good jump start in the right direction.
Saves a lot of typing.
It saves a lot of typing. It also, more and more we do it, the wording will be fairly close to what you need, and it will reflect it in the right way for the most part.
I changed one word in the binding. Here's, I got a red message at the top of the update statement conflicted with column 4 and 3.
Okay, yep, hang on. Okay, we're not there yet, but you're right. Okay, you want to edit it first. You want to change the words to make sure that you've got it roughly saying what you wanted to say. You may have to insert a campus name. You may have to change some of the wording. What you also have to do are two other things. Before the program will accept this into your report, there are two things you have to do, otherwise you're going to get an error message. Okay? And you're jumping ahead a little bit. You have to make a choice. First, is it a violation or a best management practice? The program has to know. You have to make a choice. Is it actually a violation or is it a best management practice? It doesn't matter in some sense which one you pick from the point of view of the program. It does to me, it does to the audit team. But the computer is set up in such a way that it's telling you you must make a choice, because the report will spit out and classify it either as a violation or a best management practice. And so you've got to make a determination. You can always change your mind. Nothing in this is going to ever be irreparable. But at any given point, you've got to make a choice. And the other thing you have to do in a minute, when we get a chance, we're going to scroll down just a tiny bit on the screen. A little further down, you have to identify who the auditor is. Where it says select name, does everybody see where that is? Down on the screen. Again, one of the things you have to do is you have to be identifying who the auditor is, who's entering this into the report, because it will help a great deal to then be able to go back and talk to the specific person from the team if there's any question or issue or need for clarification for the particular finding. This is a way of linking the finding to a particular person. Justin?
What is to prevent two auditors from reporting the same infraction?
It's a great question. So what's to prevent two different auditors from actually identifying the same infraction? Part of what the audit team is going to do is coordinate, so that typically one person takes the lead on any given program. So if we go out and audit as a team, pretend hypothetically Justin is the lead on hazardous waste, but I'm also going to go out and audit, and so is Meredith, and so is Vanessa. We're going to feed Justin the information, or we may at least coordinate with him and say, these are the findings that I identified, I'll enter these into the database for you. But the team is always talking to each other so that we don't end up with two different people doing it. At the very worst, you'll end up with several different findings, and then the audit team or the lead auditor will go through and combine them together into one. Yes?
If you find light bulbs improperly stored in one building and then find light bulb, is it a single violation or two?
That's a single violation. That's a great question, because it's exactly what I want to get to next. So you get a cookie. Thank you. If you take a look just below the name of the auditor, where it says edit locations, this is a second field that allows you to enter in as many locations as you want that are all related to the same general violation. So especially for hazardous waste and universal waste, finding bulbs in a corner, finding unlabeled containers, finding unlabeled or undated bulbs. This is a way of having one finding, but you can say this one finding occurred in a whole number of locations, and this will let you enter in as many locations as you want. And this is one of the places where you definitely do want to take good, careful notes during the audit, because you want to be able to provide that detail to the school so they can then know where to go to correct all these different issues that you found. So you absolutely we're going to talk to the school. Each school has a different way of identifying locations across the campus. One of the things we'll do as a team is come up with one convention that works for the school as to how to identify each location so that the school will understand. If we're talking about this particular place, they call that building by a certain name or number. That's what we're going to use. And then we're always going to, whenever possible, we'll identify a room. Again, it's usually set up for situations indoors. It may not always be. There may be situations outside, but as best we can, as specifically as we can, identify each location and then provide some detail, either within the room, within the space, what the issue was. Bulbs in the corner unlabeled, what the type of waste was in the SAA that was being kept out in the open. You're trying to give the school as much detail as reasonably makes sense so they can understand what the issue was, where it was, and what they need to do to correct it. All right? And again, all of this is very flexible in the sense that you enter something in and you find that it's a mistake, it doesn't fit, it's the wrong thing. There's always a way of undoing it. You can always hit the delete button, check the box. The other thing you always have to do is hit submit or hit yes. It's going to want to know that you really want to enter this in, and it's going to ask you to confirm what you're doing. One of the things you have to know about this program, it's a good point and a bad point, is that it will not automatically save something for you before you leave any screen and go to a different screen. Make sure that you've hit submit. Okay, it's very, very important because this is much like a Word document. If you type in changes to a Word document and then go and close the document before you save it, you lose the changes. This is set up exactly the same way. It's good because it won't accept anything without you telling it to, but the bad news is you have to make sure you do, otherwise you'll lose your work product that you haven't saved yet. So please treat it much like you would treat a Word document. You have to save every screen before you jump to a different screen. Okay? Any questions so far?
After you submit it, you can go back and edit it?
Yes. After you save it, exactly like a Word document, you can go back and edit it again as often as you want. You can go back and delete it. You can change it. Nothing is irreparable, but please make sure you save it, otherwise you will lose it. All right? And what I handed out to everybody is the document with the holes in it. This is sort of just walking you, what we just talked about is walking you through step by step on this document, all the different things that you want to do. So this is for your reference. It can go in the book if you want. The first page walks you through step by step how to replicate from one existing finding into the report that you're working with. Okay, and there are a couple other things we'll do, is a couple other functions, but I want to make sure everybody's comfortable with this basic function first. How to replicate and copy from one report into another report.
You will be bringing laptops for the audit, or?
I personally won't be supplying them, but the audit team, if they have them, definitely should bring laptops. The school may have some, but generally we're asking every auditor, if you have a laptop available, either that's yours personally at work or if the school has one that you can borrow for the audit, to please bring it on the audit. Yeah, if you don't have one, then we'll share. I mean, we will always make do, but it's always better if we can do it. One of the things we try to do is set up with the school a location where we either have wireless or we've got wired connections to the internet so that we can be sitting, as Alex said, towards the end of the audit, entering in these right away on the spot while it's still fresh in everybody's mind. All right? Yes? Right now, it is set up so that anyone can go in and edit anyone else's page. Obviously, I would prefer that you didn't do that. And one of the things that we are working on is setting up controls, if we need to, that limit everybody's access so that, in theory, everybody will have access to the audits that they're working on and nothing else. But right now, it is set up as an open information sharing opportunity for everybody. But if the Board of Regents decides that that's not appropriate, then we will change it. And we'll keep talking about that and seeing what makes sense. Okay?
Just as simple as changing the password?
Yes. Yeah. You can just, it's very easy to set up controls so that certain people have read-only privileges, certain people have write-only privileges to certain reports. It's easy enough to do. If that's the decision that makes sense, then that's what it will be done. So, in any case, though, I just want to make sure that everybody first is very comfortable both with how things are set up, how you go about doing this, and the different key pieces of information that you have to enter in. The fact that you have to choose a violation or a best management practice. You have to identify the name of the auditor, how you go in and enter in the different locations. Any questions about any of that so far? Is everybody good? Is everybody understanding how you do that? And again, you've got that sheet that will helpfully walk you through it. It's a lot to absorb at once, but this will be a reasonable, good way to remember. Meredith?
I have a question.
Yes.
This report is going to be going not only to the EHS people, but also to the administration of the university and to other people.
Yes.
I know it's a lot easier to type than SAA for satellite accumulation area, but the president of the university is not going to have any clue what that means. So will that be fixed in the final report?
What will, that's a very good question. The question is, what are you going to do when we use a lot of abbreviations that people in the EHS world understand very well, but that people outside of the EHS world do not really know and they're not familiar with? Like any report, at the beginning of every report, it will identify it, and what the word is and what it means, and then it will be abbreviated. At the end of every report, there also is an appendix that lists out all of the abbreviations, so that at the very end, anybody who wants to can quickly jump to that to see what that abbreviation is. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. Yes, Alex?
One thing, re-emphasizing, I just fell into this, is you also have to submit on the findings before you go out, or it's gone.
Yes, right.
There's 2 submits.
Yes, good point, thank you. Question is, how do you've got to make sure that you've hit submit when you've identified the finding that you want to copy and you hit replicate. In order to replicate it, you have to hit submit. Is that what you're talking about?
When you go back to the finding screen, you've got to submit there too.
Yes. When you go back to the finding screen, you have to hit submit in order to accept it.
Because it will keep the copy part if you don't.
Right. Okay. Is everybody good so far? Okay. On the back of the first page is just instructions on how to edit a finding. It's really what you've already all done for the most part. Once you've copied it over into your report, how to edit it, what to do to make sure that you're doing it correctly. And again, just if you look down at the bottom, under number 7, it says you have to pick an auditor's name. If you don't select an auditor's name, then you get an error message. So it's written out right clearly because it's not a very obvious thing to know at first. So it's a very easy error to stumble into if you don't know about it. So you wanted to recreate it, thank you. I was hoping that's all that was going on and not something else. So we've created a finding by copying it over from another report. What do you do if there is no finding that already exists? We come across something that hasn't been encountered yet. Add a new finding. Aha! How about that? So that's what we're going to do. So if you take a look up at the screen, where are you? Let's see. Are we on the right screen? Where are you?
Main screen, I'm on the finding screen.
Yeah. Is it over to the right? Can you scroll over to the right on the bottom a second, using the bottom bar?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. It just wasn't far enough over to the right. If you take a look, once you're on the main findings screen, if you want to create a new finding because you don't find one in the existing library, way over to the right along that second blue bar, there's a little a button that says Add New Finding. And if you click on that, that's going to allow you to enter in new information and basically create a finding that will then get thrown into the library along with all the other findings, but it'll first get into the report that you're working on. But at the same time, it automatically goes into the general pool of findings so somebody else can replicate that if they want to. Okay? And what it'll ask you to do is it's always going to link it first to a program, and so you'll have a pull-down menu. In this case, I've artificially shortened the list of programs to just 2, to air and hazardous waste, to make it a little simpler. But in reality, in a real audit, you'll have the full choice of all the programs that we're auditing. And so what you always have to do in order to help the machine out, because it doesn't know any better, you have to link it to a program. So it will know this is a hazardous waste program. So when I want to sort by program later on, it's going to link it to that specific set of other findings. So you're going to identify one of the 2, in this case, one of the regulatory programs, and choose that. And then you're going to want to enter in a title to, again, be able to identify it for yourself, and then also so other people can identify it later if they want to replicate it. So you're typically looking to try to capture the essence of what the issue is in somewhere between 4 and 8, maybe 10 words at the most. You're not looking for anything particularly long. You're trying to really capture the essence. Containers were not labeled in an SAA. Bulbs unlabeled. Universal waste not handled properly, not dated properly. So there's no particular magic number to the number of words, but you are trying to keep it fairly short because there's a limit both to the window and also to the value of adding lots and lots of words to the descriptor at some point. And then what you're going to want to do, just like we talked about in that little sample of the report, the first document we looked at, you want to describe first what the issue was. What did we find as we walked around? 20 boxes of bulbs not labeled. You're going to want to identify whether it's a violation or a best management practice. You're going to want to identify what the requirement is. The requirement here is, what does the regulation call for? What's the standard that we're being measured against? So if it's a violation, it's going to be something in the regulations. If it's a best management practice, it may be school policy, it may be Board of Regents policy, it may be just a good practice that's helpful. There may not always be a specific requirement. It may just be general lab tidiness. So you're going to insert whatever's appropriate for the requirement to identify what the standard is so that the school understands, so that anyone else who's copying this understands what the benchmark is that you're trying to judge the situation against. And then you'll want to insert, again, a proposed corrective action. And what we talked about when we first looked at that little quick short one-page mock-up of the report, we're not asking for a lot of really sophisticated, deep, detailed thinking here. It's a really, what's the very basic action that somebody can take? It's really the most very basic steps that need to be done in order to address the situation. It's not truly a plan of action. It's just at its core. If you were going to give a briefing to the president of the school, what needs to be done? We need to make sure all the containers are labeled. He's not going to want to know step by step all the 14 things that you're going to need to do. He just wants to know, how are you going to fix this? You're going to make it so? Jean-Luc Picard? Good. Make it so. Make it happen. This is really a very high-level, brief statement of corrective action.
The lead author will be responsible for reviewing all of these to make sure.
Yes. Yeah. Part of. Oh, I know.
So we sit
I'm sorry, Arthur, I can't hear you. It's because Matt's talking.
under requirement is where you put the codes.
No, actually, under requirement, we're going to move that. Alex is doing a great job, but we're going to actually move that. Under federal citation is where we're going to put the regulatory citation, and there's a second field for state citations. So the citations will actually go.
And look up citation.
Yes. And there are places to go. I mean, first of all, we've got all the information that's in the training materials. There are a lot of citations, both in the PowerPoint and in the other materials. On the checklists, most of the questions at the checklists have a regulatory citation that follows the questions. So there's a lot of ready-made information that will help, but if not, yes, we'll have to identify what the citation is. David?
If you violated a condition of a permit, that would go under the requirement?
Yes.
And then you put which rule and whatever goes in the
Right.
box.
Right.
Yeah, but my question that goes with that is, how do you pick a location? Do you have to pick a location?
You don't have to pick a location. You don't have to pick a location. Again, edit location is really just to help you if there are multiple specific discrete locations where something happened. You never have to pick a location. Okay? Some things don't need a location. A permit violation is a good example of something that never needs typically doesn't need a location. It may, but
Depending on the condition. Yeah.
right, it may not.
Failure to submit a semi-annual report.
Right. Failure to conduct training doesn't need a location. Okay? So the locations are always there to help you lend more detail in a very easy, structured way, but it's never a requirement. All right? So again, for creating a finding, you have to identify who the auditor is. Before the program will let you leave the screen, you have to identify the auditor. Again, this is a built-in safeguard because the audit team may know who entered the finding, but the school also will want to come back and ask questions at some point. This is a way of being able to know who to talk to, or at least initially who the first person might be to go back and talk to. It's also a way of, later on, if someone else has a question or an issue, a way of just getting a sense of who entered this information in so that we'll know who to go back and talk to. If I want to ask somebody, how did this apply? Is this relevant to my situation? What did you find? I'll know who to go to ask some more information of somebody. All right. Any questions about anything we've worked on so far?
Pretty much you have to fill in all the fields.
I'm sorry?
You have to fill in all fields and something.
You actually don't have to in order for the program to work, but yes, you do want to fill in all fields because otherwise all this is what I would consider to be necessary information. Some of it, in certain instances, may not apply, and if it truly doesn't apply, you don't have to fill it in. But generally, you're always going to want to identify, you must identify what the program is, you've got to come up with a title, you want to identify what the finding is, you need to identify whether it's a violation or not, you want to quickly identify what the standard is, what the regulation calls for, or what the management practice is, what the corrective action is. There may not be a federal citation. If there isn't one, you don't have to put it in. There may not be a state citation. There may only be a federal or only a state. If it's a best management practice, there may be neither. It may be a permit that the school has, and that may be what you reference. Those two in particular are really just guides to help both the audit team and the school know where to look for more information if they want to delve a little more deeply into the issue and be able to make sure they understand what the real source and the core concern is. But you do have to absolutely enter in your name, the name of the auditor, and then finally, the most important step, you got to save it before you move on. So please note those two boxes in the corner. You must save it. Obviously, the cancel button is also there. You enter something in and you decide it's really not right, you can always cancel it. Once you've saved it, we're going to talk in a minute about how you delete it if you want to go back and delete it. But given a choice at first, always save it. Nothing is irreparable. You can always go back and delete it later. But always save it first, just in case you think you want to go back and look at it again. Any questions on anything we've covered?
In this particular case, the finding that I put in does not match the regulatory program. So it actually would be universalized.
Right.
So you have to keep track of your finding versus your regulatory program.
Right.
Keep that in mind.
Yep. So that's something that the machine can't capture, but that's obviously the audit team will review this and double check on it. So the last big step I want to walk you through, you've saved a finding, you've either created it or you replicated it, and you now decide that it's really incorrect or it's wrong, you want to get rid of it, you want to get rid of parts of it. How do you delete it? The last thing that we'll just go over together. Okay? So what you're going to see is that if you go through and you've entered something in and you're back in the finding, there is a little box in the corner, not in the, well, down, I guess sort of in the middle at the very bottom, that says delete. If you decide after you've entered this in that it's really not appropriate, or as Alex in this case said, this is really a universal waste finding, but it's in the hazardous waste field, you want to delete it from here. You may want to copy it over to universal waste, but you certainly do want to get rid of it under the hazardous waste section of the program, so you're going to want to delete it. So usually the one and only thing you have to do is just click the delete the box that says delete, and it will get rid of it for you. There's one time when that will not work, and that is if you've entered in some edit locations. If you've entered in some specific locations, you've got to get rid of the locations first before you can go and delete the finding. This is a little bit of a fail-safe. Basically what the program is doing is saying you don't see those locations on the first screen where you see the finding. So you may be making a mistake. You may not realize that you really want to save that information. So it won't let you delete it before you go back into the second screen, the screen that has those individual locations, and you have to go through and delete each of those first. Once you get rid of all those locations, and you just click on each box for the locations and they're gone.
You just hit the big delete over on the side of that.
Big delete on the side of that.
You mean on the other screen?
In the edit locations, there are, if you go to the edit locations box, there are individual little delete boxes along the side, there may be a master delete, I don't remember. Then basically all I'm saying is you want to get rid of the locations first. Whether you get rid of all of them at once or individually one at a time, you just want to make sure that if you run into an error message trying to delete a finding, it's almost always because you have some edit locations that are still linked to that finding. You just want to make sure you go through and delete those first, and once those are all gone, you should have no problem deleting the finding itself. Okay. Any questions? Yes, Justin.
Is there any way or anywhere that we can have some sort of a cheat sheet to where you'd have like hazardous waste and then all the infractions that could possibly be for hazardous waste with their responding citation numbers through our federal registry and also Georgia?
One thing that you have is you've got the checklist, which provides for an awful lot of the most common violations along with the citations. And so that's a very good place to start. The other thing that I'm going to give to Alex is a list of the most common violations for the different programs. The other thing you've got in this database is when you go to replicate a finding, if you start scrolling through, you will see, you can narrow it by program, and you'll see a lot of those findings. And for each finding, if you open it up, what the federal and state citation is. What I don't have, and I understand what you're looking for, is a comprehensive list, issue by issue. I don't have that, but the checklists are a pretty good place to start.
Will this format right here be available to us when we go back for a while? In other words, can we access this program when we go back to our
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Same login name and password?
Yes.
It's going to be there for how long?
As long as it makes sense to have it there, it's there for you. The only thing I will ask you to think about is that at some point we're going to audit the Abraham Baldwin campus. So at some point we're probably going to want to get rid of all of these specific made-up audits and get rid of those. But your ability to access the database will remain the same. Yes. Right.
Hey, Justin, to go back to answer your question, it might be unlikely that we're going to actually get to a violation that is not already found in the database. But if it isn't there, we would just go do a search and put it in there.
I didn't know that we were going to be able to access this database.
Oh, yeah.
later on.
No, this is...
That'll help bolster our efforts to have faculty members comply whenever,
I'm going to provide the top 20 or
Yeah.
however many.
The most common ones.
The most common
ones.
findings. They've done about 250 audits across the country, so on campuses. And so they have a pretty good list that will help the campuses prepare.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any questions about anything that is in here right now? This is still a work in progress, so it's still slowly over time as we hit on things that need to be tweaked or improved. We're going to continue to work on it. But it's a pretty good start, and it's a pretty helpful, powerful tool because it helps you collect a lot of information and get access to a lot of information. And it also forces all of us to work off of the same format so that we've got a consistent standard report for each of the schools and a consistent standard way of entering the data and the information in one place.
I think what we'd like to do in the future is to have the prospective auditors practice prior to the audit, because this will go in one eyeball and run out the other, and we'll forget as soon as we do it. And
right.
So it's I'm going to probably make you just put in some mock findings.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're reacquainted with
the
database.
Right. Yeah. And again, treat this like all the rest of the material we've covered over the last 3 days. At first, it will feel a little bit like, it may feel like a lot of information trying to remember exactly how to do each step along the way. But if you practice it a couple times, I won't say it's always easy, but it's relatively straightforward. And with a little bit of practice, it gets a lot more comfortable. Any questions about anything about what you're supposed to be thinking about doing, how you might operate any part of this? No. All right. Well, then I think then that really wraps up the formal part of the training.